God. And with all our heart and soul, let's follow Jesus Christ. Let us preach the peace, let us preach the love. In this world already wonderful, will be much more. Get up, look at the sky, and the earth where the flowers bloom with sunshine. Let us hold our hands and be together on this road. And we take peace and love and spread it to the world. Good vibes, laughter, and shout outs. So into the Lord, always follow the footsteps of our Lord. All roads that I shall walk on. So in seas of peace, these lights that keep shining. Brighter, brighter, oh. We'll be brighter, brighter, oh. We'll be brighter, brighter, oh.
Now, guys, let's sing everybody, working with the vowels.
My life is very happy night and day. With thee I really feel a bunch of energy. The eye shows me how important it is to give. I am over helpful, that's how I love to live. Oh, working is so good, it's good. Oh, working is so good, it's good. Oh, it's so good. A-E-I-O. You have a lot of work to do, and I'm inviting you to U-O-I-E. Dedicating heart and soul, I am happy every day. A-I-O-U. I'm inviting you to U-O-I-E. I am happy every day. A-I-O-U. I'm inviting you to U-O-I-E. I am happy every day. Every day. Every day.
Bye-bye. Let's go on. Let's go on. Beijos.
About choosing the world, you know you are not alone. If we go together, be easier. The good is like climbing the highest hill to touch the stars and feel Jesus eyes in your heart. Charity is love in action. Charity is light in the soul. Light in everything around us. It's not just the beginning. Charity is the way. And then, while the new world doesn't come, you have to change what is old in us. Together we can believe. To get to the desired promised land. Give your hand and embrace the world. It's up to us, so let's go. Because charity is love in action. Charity is light in the soul. Light in everything around us. It's not just the beginning. Charity is the way. Charity is love in action. Charity is light in the soul. Light in everything around us.
love in action. Oh Jesus, here I am, my knees on the floor to say thank you, my Lord, for the lights that comes through this door. Your love is the key to change the entire world. Using these chains wisely, we will live in peace and harmony. Now I understand, helping others is helping myself. Your words now are crystal clear. Your teachings have no frontier. To see all this transformation, we just have to put love in action.
Welcome, everyone. So let's start by doing the opening prayer. Let's all close our eyes and elevate our thoughts to God, our merciful Father, asking for Him and for the high spirits to be our side, by our side, and to open our hearts to all the teachings and lessons that we will be offered tonight. May all the good spirits harmonize ourselves and all the people that are inside of our houses, so we can all be in the same harmony, connected with good thoughts and with the higher spirits. So be it.
Thank you, Andriata. And welcome everyone to our public meeting tonight. And we are so glad that you are here. And we are hoping during our talk tonight that you would ask any questions that you have or make any comments that you'd like to make at any time, simply by unmuting yourself. And also to make sure that you have water available for the past treatment at the end, because your water will be magnetized by the spiritual friends that are here with us. And we want to make sure that you have that opportunity. Other than that, we hope that you will mute your phones or your devices if you're not speaking, in order to keep the broadcast distraction free. So thank you so much for being here. So tonight we are studying chapter 21 from the gospel, and it's called There Will Be False Prophets and False Christs. And there are several sections in the chapter that we're going to be reviewing. And I just want to give the invitation that the purpose of our study is always to connect to what we are learning and what it brings for us now, what it brings for us in this moment, and what can be used right now. So because some of the study is involves some of the past, some studies of what is happening in the past, we want to make sure that you have this opportunity to look and see what can be applied in this present moment. So let's begin. So the first thing to talk about is that a tree is known by the fruits, right? And Jesus' teaching here shows us that the tree that produces bad fruit is not good, and the tree that produces good fruit is not bad. That we have to beware of false prophets who come to you covered in the skins of sheep, but who on the inside are ravenous wolves, and you will know them by their fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit. And this is in the Gospel of Luke and in the Gospel of Matthew. So these teachings from the Bible are an allegory, right? And the purposes of allegory are for us to go deeper into the true meaning of the messages there and to begin to unpack what is available to us for what can be used. Again, the theme of our study is what can be used right now. And so that's what we will do on this night. So now let's talk about this allegory of fruits, right? Good fruits or bad fruits. How do we know the difference? And we're not, of course, talking about fruits on a tree, right? We are talking about works, right? Fruits are, in this case, are relating to works. So good fruits are works that are in favor of the common good. And this is something for us to think about, right? And especially because we know from our study of Spiritism that selfishness is the largest poison of our progress. So we know that if we are doing work or if we are evaluating the works of someone who claims to be a prophet or who is to be relied on as such, that the fruit of that work should benefit the common good. In fact, in our evaluation and unpacking of this message tonight, we also should be applying it not just to how we evaluate prophets, but how we evaluate ourselves, how we evaluate our thoughts, how we evaluate our decisions, how we evaluate our actions. And we can use this lens of, are they for the common good? Before, excuse me, I go on further. One question that's really helpful when we have a decision to make is what decision is bringing the highest amount of good to the greatest number of people? And there's almost always one option that benefits everyone. And that option is the way. So the next thing to evaluate is this action or the results of this work, is it producing love or is it done out of love? And again, this is also how we can evaluate ourselves. We can evaluate our thoughts. We can evaluate our decisions. We can evaluate our actions. Are they based on love? Now, not love like, oh, I love pizza and I love going to the movies. I'm not talking about that kind of love, right? This isn't the kind of love that we're talking about when we talk about the gospel. We're talking about the law of love, which is unconditional love for all, for loving the same love that we have for God. We don't love pizza the same way we love God. So that's something to think about. Although some of us, excuse me, some of us do really like our food. I happen to be one of those people, so I'm a work in progress. The third evaluation is charity, is the works of the actions that we're evaluating. That we evaluate the tree, right? Is it producing the fruit of charity? And again, because we know that selfishness is the great poison against progress, and its opposite is charity. If the actions are not based on charity, that is good information for us. Also, when evaluating our own thoughts, when we evaluate the decisions that we make, when we evaluate the actions that we take, if they are not based on the common good, they are not based on love, they are not based on charity, this is good information for us. We might not be producing good fruit with the actions that we are taking. And most importantly, we can see that the theme of good fruits are that they are sustained exclusively by moral values, because striving for the common good is something that those of an elevated spiritual morality would undertake, because that is the opposite of selfishness. When taking an action that is based on love, that high level of spiritual love, of unconditional love, of divine love, we know that is a superior spiritual morality that is the opposite of selfishness. And that is the evaluation that we make. And it is the same with charity, right? So this collection of attributes of good fruits are underpinned and surrounded and upheld by exclusively by moral values, as opposed to our evaluation of bad fruits. So bad fruits, and again, we're not talking about rotten, the physical fruit that comes off of a tree. We're talking about works, right, that are in favor of false ideas. So when we think about what is a false idea, it's of course anything that's not true, but it's also anything that is not taking us towards that common good, right? It's anything that is against the law of progress that turns our planet from a planet of trials and expiations to a planet of regeneration. And it's also, bad fruits are those that are based on the promotion that is vested in personal interest. And here's where we have to be careful, because if we are also using this evaluation methodology to evaluate our thoughts, our decisions, and our actions, we sometimes conflate personal interests with inner reformation, right? We say, oh, I want to do this, I need to take care of myself so that I can do more. Or we sometimes are a little bit slick in the way that we talk to ourselves. And we conflate, if we're not careful, personal interests with with progress. And they're not one and the same, right? Because we can see, if we look at the evaluation methodology for good fruits, personal interests are not for the common good. Personal interests are not coming from unconditional, infinite divine love. Personal interests are definitely not coming from charity, because charity is a renunciation of those things. And so we can see that that is not a moral value that's sustained from this evaluation of what are the good fruits. And then of course, works that do not serve the collective good. So this is a really, really good methodology, an evaluation methodology for us to, of course, we are in this gospel study about false prophets and the evaluation of messages from those who say that they are messengers of God, but and also from from mediums or any messages that we're getting. We also would do very well to practice this methodology on ourselves, because again, the theme tonight is what is usable for us now. And since we're always thinking and we're always making decisions, right? And we're always taking action based on the thoughts that produce the decision or the choice that then generates the action. This brings to us a lot. I'm reminded of my two children who are fond of saying, my sister, mommy, my sister is so annoying. She's making me so mad. And I will tell them, so your sister cannot make you mad, right? That you're was choosing to respond to this situation with anger. Yes, your sister might be acting unskillfully in a way that is not demonstrative of how much she loves you, but she cannot make your decision for you on how you're going to act, right? You are having a thought about how what she's doing. You're making a decision about how to act, and your decision is, I'm going to be angry, and then you act angry. You simply cannot assign that to your sister. And of course, they would, didn't love that very much when they were young, but now that they're in their teens, they get it. And now they're very careful to remind me of that when I don't follow my own advice. So the joy of having teens, they keep you honest, and children are our greatest teachers. And of course, this is why the home life and the family is the school of the soul. So more about false prophets. So we get a warning here from Jeremiah, who says that false Christs and false prophets will appear, who will perform great prodigies and amazing things to the point of deceiving the elect themselves. Do not listen to the words of prophets who prophesy and deceive you. They publicize the visions of their hearts and not what they have learned from the mouth of the Lord. So this came from Jeremiah and in the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Mark in the reference chapters. So in our study tonight, we're going to learn what these prodigies are that are being referred to, and also unpack these scriptures so that we can again learn what we can apply to our lives right now. So let's open our minds and hearts and start looking at what are the characteristics of prophets. So again, we're going to have an evaluation methodology where we can look side by side and see that true prophets possess the highest moral values. So we know that there are moral values and then there are the highest moral values, right? So even the things that we saw from good fruits, right? We can look at that what's the common good and then like what's the highest possible common good, right? For example, the common good might be that everybody eats, but the highest possible common good is that everyone evolves. So do you see the difference? And then the characteristics of true prophets, of course, is that they are charitable, that they are love, their actions are based on love, and that they are humble, right? So we're starting to see some similarities between the good fruits and true prophets. But now there's this new idea introduced, which is humility. And again, we're talking about prophets, we're talking about the characteristics of prophets, but again, we can look at ourselves and how are we thinking? Are we humble? Because see that looking out for personal interests or that looking out for recognition or the subtle ways that we try to be seen for the good that we do, we have to watch out for that. And then there's this idea of kindness. This can be hard. See, it's easy to be kind when you're in a good mood. It's easy to be kind when you've had enough sleep. It's really easy to be kind if you're in a good mood, you've had enough sleep, and you're not physically hungry. You've had all your meals for the day. It's also easy to be kind when all of the possible activities and situations of the day have gone in your favor. But see, what about if you didn't get enough sleep? What about if you had to miss a meal or two? What if you've had a lot of disappointments throughout the day? What if people have not been being kind to you? Is it then so easy to be kind? You know, the prophets of that time did not receive, many of them skipped meals. Many of them, if they got enough sleep, were not sleeping in the comfortable environments that we sleep in with temperature controlled, you know, posturepedic mattresses with whatever number of covers that we need that we can throw in the washing machine at any time, right? We have a lot of creature comforts and we still find it difficult to be kind. So that's a good lesson for us. And here's another one that is also, I think, a very powerful one, this idea of personal detachment. So we learned when we were talking about the evaluation of trees and fruits and good fruits and bad fruits that the bad fruits can be evaluated by personal interest. So this personal detachment is this renunciation, right? It's this detachment from a need to a need to put our own needs first. But it's also another layer is detachment from the outcome. So for example, many of us say our prayers and we ask for assistance from the spiritual realm, whether we're praying to our guardian angel, whether we are praying to Jesus, whether we are praying to God, however we pray, we usually have something we're asking for. But see, when we pray well, we detach ourselves from the outcome because many times we do receive, well, we always receive the answer to our prayer. But many times the answer is not the way that we wanted it, but we're not detached from the outcome. So then we're now disappointed. We think our prayer did not get answered, or we think that God is not listening, or we have something in mind that is not personal detachment. So this, again, these are lessons for us to detach from the outcome and just live fully in the moment with love and humility and kindness, with charity. These actions, these thoughts, these decisions would put us well on our way on the evolution of the soul towards its journey for perfection and inner reformation. And so then we contrast these characteristics of the true prophets with the characteristics of the false prophets, who had a lot of knowledge, right? But they abused that knowledge to satisfy their own ambition. You see, ambition, we have to watch for that. Now, I'm not talking about the ambition to progress ourselves spiritually. I'm not talking about the ambition to control our thoughts more. I am not talking about the ambition to spend more time with charity. No, I'm talking about the ambition for greater recognition, the ambition for positions of power, the ambition for large amounts of money and large public displays of conspicuous consumption. And many of us, because we're living in this planet of trials and expiations, whose focus of society is always on material gain, none of us are exempt from these kinds of ambitions. We have to examine our own hearts. We have to examine our own thoughts. We have to examine our own decisions. And we have to examine our own actions to evaluate where we are allowing ambition for material gains and conspicuous consumption to drive our actions. This is where we can again begin to take what we can from tonight to build up our own capacity to evolve and to begin to clean inside ourselves away the stain of selfishness. And again, this is also abusing knowledge to satisfy self-interest. And we know that knowledge itself is not bad. Knowledge is a tool. So it's how we use the knowledge that determines our moral elevation. So the false prophets are using knowledge to satisfy these things and also to satisfy ego. You see, ego is a slippery thing, right? Because our ego will tell us we don't even have an ego. If we're not careful, we'll be swayed and tricked by the slick talk of our inner ego that will tell us it doesn't exist, but still whisper suggestions to us. So we want to be careful, because it is ego that is the underpinning of self-interest. It is ego that is the underpinning of ambition. So we have to be really watchful. You know, we're told over and over again to watch and pray, watch and pray, watch and pray. We have to watch our thoughts. We have to watch our decisions. We have to watch our actions and pray for help to keep all of that elevated so that we are taking actions in the best interests of the highest common good. And of course, in the actions and progress of our own moral spirituality. And now here's another that we have to watch out for, right? This is the sense of domination. That's, I need to be more powerful than you. And we have to watch for that, because we all have it. I mean, as a parent, I have to be really careful. I've caught myself more than once telling my children to do something just because they ask why. I say, because I said so, without even really having a good reason, right? I mean, I have dominion in my own home, but we have to just watch that, right? Watch where that leaks. And we have to watch out for it when we are evaluating the prophets that we are talking about here. And so the difference, right, between the two is exclusively moral in character. And it's also the difference between where we are and where we're going. So study, right, is important to improve our minds. Inner reformation is the way to improve our souls and to improve, of course, our own moral character. So we talk about now the mission of the prophets, right? So in the past tradition, there's a question, Andrea?
I was just going to say something because it reminds me of a part of the gospel. When we are talking the prophets in here, it reminded me of a little part of the gospel that was saying about, sometimes when we think about prophets or when we think about people that are highly elevated, We think about, these people that would be able to live in the middle of the desert by themselves. And I remember in that day, I was doing, the gospel at home, and I read this part, and I was like, yes, this is the perfect definition, that it was saying that what God wants from us, and, from the real prophets, probably we can assume this, is not someone that will be living by yourself in the middle of the desert, because the trials and the difficulty from our life, it comes exactly from our interaction in society. And not only thinking about the difficulty, but also the contribution that we all, and also the prophets, the contribution that we have to do for society, for the group of people, for the community. So when I read that, that was one of those things that, really, it sticks to you and to your heart. So I thought it was, a good moment to bring this up.
Yes, I love that you brought that up, because just like you said, Angiata, it's easy, right, to be humble if you're the only one around, right? It's easy to be kind if there's nobody there who's annoying you, right? It's easy to be personally detached if there's no other people around whose interests you need to elevate above yours so that you can detach from yours. You are 100% correct. Thank you so much for bringing that to the study. I love that. And that's also, I think, the importance of community. That's part of what our time together in our studies, our time together on Saturday, our time together in our public meetings, our time together in our study. This is so important. Love, love, love that you said that, Angiata. Thank you. So the mission of the prophets, right? So in the past, they had the talent of predicting the future in order to transmit warnings to men. And in the religious sense, right, the religious prophets of the past, they instructed men and revealed the hidden meanings and mysteries of the spiritual life to them. And so this brings to us, right, that a man can be a prophet without making prediction, because there was many, especially in the apostles and during the saints of that time. We're not making predictions. They were just giving messages about our morality, and also just like we're doing tonight, right, unpacking the messages and hidden meanings that in the teachings. So this brings for us a question, right? Well, what about us? What is our mission? What are we prophesizing, right? Because every time we speak, we also have to remember that our thoughts and our decisions are shaping the universal fluids around us, and we are creating our reality all the time. So when we speak things into existence, we are also prophesizing. So this is a powerful lesson for us that makes sure to be bringing elements and bringing good fruit, right? Bringing the characteristics of elevation. So then we have this section about prophets with a mission, right? So missions are entrusted to spirits or souls who are already very advanced, that are already superior in intelligence and morality, because we just learned, right, they don't go hand in hand. You can have people with very high morality, but without a lot of intelligence, that are still far more advanced than someone with a lot of intelligence and without the morality that use their intelligence to harm people. So elevated spirits have both, right? And so those are the people that get entrusted with missions here in the physical realm. And so there also are mediums, right, that with great potential, that are faithful and true interpreters. And also the intention, right? The mission is always to make humanity advance morally and intellectually. And in order to do that, we need men and women that are already superior in both intelligence and morality. Because if not, then if they're not superior to the environment in which they must act, then their efforts will be fruitless, right? We can't expect dirty water to be a cleansing agent. We can't wash our clothes with dirty water, right? We need the cleanest water possible to wash our clothes. We need the cleanest spirits possible to bring to us, the most pure spirits possible to bring to us the ability to clean our own souls. But the interesting thing is when we think about prophets on a mission, they don't always know that, right? Most true missionaries of God are unaware of that fact. This is from the Gospel, Chapter 21, that they carry on their mission guided by a hidden power inside of them with no premeditated plan. They're just being guided and doing what they feel is the right thing to do. And most importantly, again, as we've been learning, this brings to us now the tree and the fruit, that true prophets are revealed by their actions, that they are discovered by others, and they are humble, right? These three things are key because true missionaries of God must justify their mission by their ascendancies, by their virtues and greatness, and the results and moralizing influence of their deeds. So they have, in effect, right, a silent ministry because the work is being happened at the action level. And this brings to us a lot because, again, as a mother of teens who are very consistent and deliberate and thoughtful and strategic about pointing out every time my actions deviate from what I teach them, they are really consistent about showing me that gap, which is, of course, super annoying to my ego and then very gratifying to my soul and my spirit because I'm here to be in a spiritual school with them, obviously. But it does give the importance of the silent ministry. And I remember being taught when I was in seminary that it's not always necessary to go and tell people all about your spiritual beliefs. That if you live powerfully enough in your own silent ministry, that people will want to know who you are and what you have. They will ask you if you are living powerfully enough. So this brings to us a lot. And now if someone tells you that they're a prophet, right? Run, because false prophets present themselves as messengers of God. We should be distrusting these sugary words because they speak with arrogance, fearful of being believed. And, you know, there's a message from Lewis, the Spirit. But before we talk about that, you know, this is important, right? False prophets present themselves as messengers of God and to distrust sugary words. So, you know, Jesus never said, Jesus wasn't a Christian, right? Jesus never said, I'm a Christian and you should follow Christianity, right? There's even the great mediums of our time, the Chico Xavier's and the Givaldo Franco's and the Waldo Vieira's, like they never said, I'm this great messenger of God and you should follow me with a bunch of flowery words. We never heard that, right? And never did we hear any of these modern day prophets on a mission speak with arrogance or worry if we believe them or not, right? This is important. And it's also important for us for guidance, right? And also, so from Lewis, the Spirit Lewis says, run from those who display one atom of pride as if they were contagious lepers, who infect everything that they touch. Remember that all individuals bear on their brow, but more especially on their actions, the stamp of their greatness or arrogance. And so this is again, the tree showing the fruit. This is our actions speaking louder than words. And this is the actions being the fruit of the thoughts and words and decisions. And we can use our evaluation methodology to be able to make that evaluation. So then there's this idea of prodigies, right? We talked earlier, there was that two parts of that scripture from Jeremiah, right? That there would be false prophets and then the false prophets would be prodigies. So the false prodigies at the time of this time of Christ, at that time, the charlatans and unscrupulous persons abused the gifts of prophecy and exploited it, right? So they had knowledge, but they used their knowledge, right, not for the good, and they abused the simple people of that time. This was the Jews at the time. They had like blind faith, and they abused them by predicting good and agreeable things in return for money. So this is one of the examples of a false prodigy. But let's talk about what is a prodigy. So the theological meaning of the word prodigy is an exceptional phenomena that occur outside the laws of nature. But that brings to us a question, right? Do prodigies and miracles really exist? And the answer, of course, is no, because every phenomenon with an unknown cause comes across as supernatural, extraordinary, and miraculous until, right, the cause is known. And once that cause is known, it is realized that the phenomenon, as extraordinary as it might seem, is nothing other than the application of nature's laws. We know that because it's repeated in the medium's book, it's repeated in the spirit's book, we know it from the gospel, right? That every intelligent cause has an intelligent effect, right? So we know this. So if we look at what the origins, right, the prodigies of the false prophets have their origin in both acquired knowledge, right, and in their organic faculties. And then their accessibility to the worthy and indigenous, meaning that the prophets had access to the people of the time, the indigenous people of the time. And just using simple applications of the laws of nature, right? And laws known by science. And some laws that are unknown by science, because again, some of them were mediums, right? So some of them had access to, at that time, the teachings of Spiritism were not available to everyone. So they took this knowledge, they took their natural skills, they took their access to people who had blind faith, and then misused their knowledge, right, to produce these effects. And then we might say, well, who are false prophets, right? And so the false prophets, they are those who exploit their knowledge, right, and their spiritual, special, organic faculties for their own ambition, interest, and desire for domination, right? So now we're connecting this back to the evaluation methodology. And they take advantage of the good faith of people who actually believe that they are divine missionaries. And so the actions that are performed reveal the degree of moral advancement, characterizing those that are false or true prophets, just like our own thoughts, decisions, and actions characterize us in our own degree of elevation. And you'll recall last week, Anna talked about selling mediumship, that mediumship is not for sale, right? So this is also that characteristic of taking their mediumship and selling it, and we would do well to take heed from the lesson that we got last week. And if you did not see it, please feel free to visit our Facebook or YouTube page to be able to review that lecture last week, a very, very good lecture. Now we have to ask ourselves, how do we protect ourselves from false prophets? Well, the first thing is the spreading of enlightenment destroys their credibility. Just what we're doing right now, right? With knowledge, we destroy blind faith and we bring deeper awareness to the human mind. And this is so important to us because we have a duty to study. We have a duty to use our own minds for good. And we have a duty to study how to use the knowledge that we have in order to produce our own elevation. And see, when we do this, then of course the numbers of these false prophets dwindle to the degree and in direct proportion to the degree that we become enlightened. And again, this brings to us the importance of study. And study is not reading, just so that we're clear. Reading a book is not the same thing as studying it. I remember hearing Flavia say that the difference between reading and studying is like those travel brochures that we used to have. We don't have them now in the age of the internet. And I know I'm dating myself a little bit here, but back in the day, we used to have these travel magazines that showed you the beautiful photos of the hotels and these beautiful destinations. And Flavia said that reading a book is like reading a travel magazine. But studying the book is actually, you take the trip and you actually get on the plane and you go and you visit and you land on the ground and you walk around and see it. So that's the difference. So when we've talked about false prophets in the physical realm, but this chapter also brings to us this idea of false prophets in the spiritual world, right? And they can be found in even larger numbers because, as we know from our studies of Spiritism, that the spirit world is larger than the physical world. There are at any given time more of our brothers and sisters on the spiritual plane around us than there are brothers and sisters in these coarse, dense physical envelopes we call a body. So even right now, we are not alone. We have friends around us, right? So it would make sense then, that's the logical conclusion, is that if we have false prophets here in the physical world, that there are even more of them in the spiritual world. And so even in the spiritual world, under the false pretense of love and charity, they sow disunion, just like we see here on the physical realm. And something to watch out for is that they cause antagonism among groups who then isolate themselves and watch each other with suspicion. And there's a summer book study we did a few years ago. I think it was in 2018 or maybe 2017. But it was, it all happened at a Spiritist center. And this is a book that's in English that you can get on Amazon, get a Kindle copy for maybe $5 or $6. Such a good book. And the book is about a Spiritist center in Brazil where a group of ignorant and unevolved spirits decided to attack the Spiritist center. And their method of attack was to sow disunity. Their method of attack was to isolate the different mediums and to give them messages that, just like the whole evaluation methodology, to appeal to the medium's egos, to appeal to the medium's desire for domination, to appeal to the medium's need for recognition, ambition, and personal interest, right? And begin to isolate these mediums. And because the mediums in this book, the specific mediums targeted by these ignorant and lower level spirits, um, we're not watching and praying, we're not vigilant, the results were catastrophic for the Spiritist Center. And it took a lot of work by those who were still watching and praying and by the leaders of that Spiritist Center to turn that situation around. So this does happen, and there are books written about it. Highly recommend that book. And then the gospel gives us this warning: to mercilessly shun all spirits who present themselves as exclusive counselors, preaching separation and isolation. So we are aware, of course, in Spiritism, this idea of mediums. We know we have different kinds of mediums. We have talking mediums, we have speaking mediums, we have incorporation mediums, all different sorts of mediums. But this is specifically referencing those mediums who are able to either incorporate or to transmit messages. So, and then if the messages themselves are saying that the particular spirit presenting that data are exclusive counselors or recommending separation and isolation, we are told to shun that. And in this chapter, we are given specific messages about not believing all spirits. And so we are told, do not believe in any spirit. Test if the spirits are gods, for many false prophets have arisen in the world. And this is from Epistle. And here's the thing. So Spiritism offers an explanation of a certain order of phenomena that was previously misunderstood until the present time, right? And so how does Spiritism do this? Well, we do this by the analysis of the theories and characteristics of unevolved spirits. And the Mediums book in chapter 31 talks a lot about this. In chapter 31, it says, it is not among incarnates only that false prophets are to be found. They exist, and in far greater numbers, among the self-conceited spirits who, under the mask of love and charity, sow dissension and retard the emancipation of the human race by the absurd statements which they cause to be made through their mediums to fascinate and mislead them, right? There's more on this. This is directly from the gospel, and it's quoting the Mediums book, but we analyze their characteristics. So if they give themselves respectable names, yet sow mysticism, we got to be careful. If they sow disunity, remember that first evaluation methodology, the common good. So if there is a message about sowing disunity, we have to be thoughtful and watchful about that. And we need to be careful that what we are thinking and saying and doing and deciding is not sowing disunity in our own spiritual circles. We have to be really, really watchful. Or if they're driving groups to isolation, or if they're prescribing extravagant acts. These are things that we have to really be thoughtful, these characteristics. And then there's the idea of analyzing theories, right? We have to make sure that we pass those theories through the sieve of reason and logic, which we should be doing with all things anyway. But we're not always that disciplined with what we do with our mind. And so this is just this reminder for all of us, myself included, is to begin to have some mental discipline, right? And also to submit them to the common sense of the masses, right? And to validate the theories with other spiritist groups. So in this way, because we know that the Spirits book, we know that the messages in the Spirits book were questions that were posed to many mediums, and mediums that were not physically close enough to each other to communicate. This was before email and text message and WhatsApp, right? This is, before telegrams. So the responses from each of these mediums to these questions were analyzed by Allan Kardec, the codifier, and saw consistency and alignment in those messages. So this method of analysis to compare to previous messages holds true, right?
Hey, Cara,
Yes.
can I say something?
Of course.
Also, a lot of people, they go to the Spirit Center to talk with the spirits, and ask for them to predict the futures or drive their decisions. Stuff like, should I buy this? Should I do this business or not? Or should I move to somewhere else or not, or stuff like that. Superior spirits, they never will never tell what you got to do. Uh, uh, they will never respond to those questions. I had a friend that one day she went to a spirit center and to talk with the spirit to ask about a certain business decision. And the spirit told her what she had to do. And then she came to me and said, and asked my opinion. I said, um, he might be telling the truth or something that he's envisioned, but for sure he's not a spirit, a superior spirit that is looking for your real good, because those decisions, it's on you. You are supposed to take those decisions based on your good faith and reasonable judge.
Mhm.
So that's something that I learned with by uh, studying spiritism is superior spirit. They will never predict the future if it's to the benefit of the good group, a big group. Um, Another example, a couple years ago, a certain group in Brazil, they received a spirit's communication with the orientation for them to expand their activities uh, to a foreign countries. And they predicted that the spiritism would grow in foreign countries. That's different because that kind of prediction is for the good of the group, not only to the beneficial of a single person. So
Mhm. So the common good, I love that you said that, because what you're calling out is that evaluation methodology of, is this for the common good or is this for personal interest?
yes.
Right? That's a wonderful, wonderful example. Thank you, Raphael, for that.
And of course, we are not saying here that we cannot go and have a consultation with the spirit, but we should analyze the what kind of message they are delivering. We had a case in Mexico. Uh, the 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 spirit was identified theirself, he or she, himself, as God. So that spirit center was offering people to communicate with God, and those people. They are very humble, very good people with good intention, but they were uh, falsely offering people opportunity to talk with God. So this is just to give you an idea how tricky the communication with the spirits can be. So that's why Kardec, he gave to us a full body of knowledge and a recommendation for us to not to fall in those traps.
Thank you so much. Yes, there was that's another perfect example, Raphael, of the one of the other evaluation methodologies, which was that they come bringing big names, right? There's, you see many times in the gospel and in the spirits book, spirits that just identify themselves as a protector spirit or a friendly spirit. Or there's another spirit that said, my name is love. If I say who else I am, they would come in large numbers, right? So I'm just going to say my name is love. So there's the humility there that clearly wasn't there with our friendly spirit that identified themselves as God. So
Yeah, and we should never worry about names. We should always look at the content of the message. That's what Kardec recommends to us. Look at the message, and the quality of the message, and what the message tells us. Um, in the beginning of the pandemic, in March or April, something like that, the pandemic, COVID pandemic, it starts mid-March for us here in US.
Mhm.
Uh, and we start right after we start receiving, seeing a lot of uh, spiritual communication, which I don't doubt that those communication were coming from spirits. But those communication were saying that the pandemic would last for 2 months. Many of them with beautiful message, encouraging message. And I start to, and look where we are today. We are still living the pandemic. So even and I started seeing a lot of the spiritist community sharing those messages, and I was skeptical about those messages because, like I said, the higher spirit, they don't predict the future in that way, right? They won't tell you the pandemic will last 1 day, 2 days, or 2 months, because this is part of that doubt is part of the proof that we have to go through. So you see, later on, we are, even though those messages were saying um, the pandemic would last 2 months, 6, 7 months later, we are still living with this. So you got to be very careful with when sharing the message.
Very true. Very true. And so the spirits bring to us, right, how to test, right? So the way to test is by, of course, evaluating the quality of their deeds. And this gives, we get the means to evaluate by providing the characteristics of good spirits, right? So some of the characteristics are they're always moral, they're never material, that they teach love, they teach charity, and that we are told, learn to distinguish the good spirits from the evil spirits so that we ourselves don't become false prophets. And this means the mediums that are transmitting these messages. There are a lot more evaluation methodologies. Of course, we find them both in the spirits book and in the mediums book. So continued study is definitely recommended. So then we have the spirits teachings, and we are just about done. We just have a couple of messages here from the spirits, and then we'll go on to the passes. So we have this message: go forth, therefore, my beloved children, and advance without hesitation, without ulterior motives, along the blessed course you have undertaken. And interestingly, that it says without hesitation or ulterior motives, right? Because many of us, we are bold on the path of perdition, right? We're bold on the path of materiality without hesitation, right? But and without ulterior motives, right? We just want to get what we want on the material plane. But when it comes to our spiritual path, not so bold anymore. We do it sometimes with not exactly the reason that we're presenting. So this is good for us to really, I present this message kind of sentence by sentence because sometimes we read a whole message and we just try to find the theme, the general idea, and we miss the specific instructions. So it's good sometimes to study sentence by sentence. And then we are told, go forth always without fear. And so why would the Spirit tell us without fear? Well, we learned just this last week, for those of you that are participating in our Saturday study, where there's multiple classes happening simultaneously. I am the student teacher facilitating the Nasolar course. And in our study from chapter, I think it's 41 of Nasolar, there was a big teaching on fear. One of the instructors, Narcissa, said that we must establish adequate measures against fear. And so why does she say that? Is because she says there is a high percentage of human lives that are suffocated simply by the destructive vibrations of dread, which are as contagious as any epidemic. And we classify fear as one of an individual's worst enemies because it settles in the citadel of the soul and attacks its deepest forces. And a citadel, by the way, is like the fortress. It's like the guard. right? So fear actually attacks our defenses because in order to be afraid of something, we have to create an image of the worst possible outcome and then allow ourselves to react and take actions based on that image, which is we're basically producing the very thing that we're afraid of. So this is why we are told, go forth without fear. We have to be careful of this. And then we're told, courageously distance yourselves from anything that could hinder your progress towards the eternal objective. Aha. So now we know, first we're told go without fear, then we're told be courageous. Why is that? We see these things that hinder our progress, that stop our progress. Let's think about it, right? The things that stop our progress are exactly the very same things at the beginning we learned that were the difference between good fruits and bad fruits. It is the very same things that differentiated the false prophets and the true prophets. It was the very same thing that distinguished between the good spirits and the spirits that are still at a lower level. There's a consistency with this evaluation methodology that all of the things that are what we're trying to get to are for the common good, that are based on infinite love, that are based on charity, that are based on the common good, that are based on the elimination of self-interest. And the opposite of that is pride, ego, selfishness, ambition, domination, recognition, right? So all of those things, if we distance ourselves, right? If we distance ourselves from those things, some of us, okay, us will think, well, what is my life if without those things? We fear who we would be without those things. We fear what our life would be like. We fear that we may not be able to enjoy our lives without these things. So that is the message here. Courageously distance yourself without fear, right? Courage is the absence of fear from anything that could hinder our progress towards the eternal objective, which, as we know, is spiritual evolution. It is purifying our souls, purifying our spirits so that we can ascend amongst the ranks of the categories of evolved spirits. So the rest of this message, and then we're just about done, is, "O travelers, you will be in the darkness of pain, of trial for only a little while longer." And remember this when we think that pain is going to last forever, right? Because it doesn't. If you will allow your hearts to follow that gentle doctrine, allow your hearts to follow that gentle doctrine, this gospel. You see, we open our hearts to pain and we close it to the gospel. We open our hearts to foolishness and we close it to the gospel. So let's keep our hearts to be open. Let's allow our hearts to open and follow the gospel. And it has come to reveal to you, this is the gospel, it has come to reveal to you the eternal laws and satisfy all the aspirations of your soul regarding the unknown, right? We're still in the place where we want the material world to satisfy our soul, right? But this is giving us a good message, right? And so therefore, press on, advance without ceasing. And see, without ceasing, it means to be consistent. And you see, we're not consistent in pretty much anything except the spiritual world. We're really consistent, the material world. We're really consistent there. But when it comes to the spiritual world, and we're not always so consistent. So everything in this message is so powerful. And then we're told, let your banner be progress, continual progress in all things, until you finally arrive at the happy destination where all those who have preceded you await. And so this is telling us, let us progress in the good. Because remember, that ambition is when we want to progress in the material. Well, let's let our ambition be progress in the good, right? Let's make that our mission. This is from, again, Lewis, Bordeaux, 1861. This is that message. So this is what we had time for tonight. There's one final message from Andre Louise from Living the Gospel, Volume 2. And Andre says, easy wealth, eternal salvation, impossible cures, a perfect marriage, prestige in profession, material prosperity, happiness guaranteed, business on the rise, success in life, personal power. Andre is now speaking to all of these predictions that these false prophets make, right? This is like Rafael said earlier, right? The spirits giving messages that are of a personal nature, right? But Andre tells us the gospel is a shining script for inner happiness. But these false prophets, eager to please those who hear them, do not forget now that Jesus made it clear But the most important victory is the triumph over our own imperfection. And the most authentic good is achieved by doing good to others. So that is from Andre Louise. This is the end of our lecture tonight. I will pause and just see before we start the passes if there was any questions or comments anyone wanted to make.
Thank you, Kara. This message was so beautiful. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing.
thank you. I love it. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you, Kara. Was a great talk, and I just want to uh, say something there. How can we distinguish superior message from superior spirit from a message coming from a low moral elevated spirit? You read the good. If you read the good all the time, you're gonna easily distinguish the good from the bad. It's easy. So you have to give yourselves the opportunity to read good message from reliable resource. Kardec is the first one. Chic Xavier, Divaldo Franco, so many other good mediums that delivered good message, good teachings. So if you get used to read and study those books, we will easily distinguish when a bad message come to us.
Thank you, Raphael. So important, the importance of study. We can't underscore it enough. So true. Anyone else? Just want to make sure there's space for anyone that wants to add anything before we go to the passes. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for being with us. And I will turn it over to Angiata to guide us in the passes.
Let's now take a moment for a meditation to calm down and go inside ourselves to receive the blessings of the passes. Place a jar of water close to you for you and your family. This water will be magnetized. We begin the pass by breathing slowly and deeply, relaxing body and mind. Let go of your worries and thoughts for a moment. We raise our thoughts to Jesus by tuning in with the good spiritual friends. Let's put ourselves in prayer. Ask God, our Father, for the presence of the guardian angel and friendly spirits by your side in this moment. We ask them to assist all the homes here represented. We ask God to allow us to receive healing rays for all physical body ailments, stopping any action of infirmities through the application of vibration of rays of light throughout our being. We now proceed to the dispersion paths. Let's imagine a crystal clear water falling over us, full of blessings, involving our whole body, removing all negative energy, thoughts, and feelings, penetrating and involving our entire body, organs, cells, and our centers of force, restoring our energies, detaching ourselves from all hurt, anger, nervous tension, guilt, sadness, and frustration, afflictions, and anxiety. Allow the action of this cleansing by putting all your difficulties and sensations in the hands of the good spirits. We feel ourselves spiritually clean. Involve in this moment the entire environment of our home from all forms of ill thoughts and feelings. that may disharmonize ourselves and our family members. May this water clean all this energy and all these ill forms of thoughts and feelings. Let's open the doors to cleanliness and releasing all feelings of selfishness and possession. Dear God, embrace our hearts, giving everyone good intuitions and freeing us all from evil. Thank God. We now proceed to the replenishing path. After cleaning and feeling light and happy to be free, we start the strengthening phase, restoring our energies. Let the light of love fall upon us by rays of restorations of our whole being, helping us re-energize both morally and spiritually. Visualize the team of spiritual doctors around your physical and spiritual body, receiving lights that provide beneficial and strengthening energies. Through breathing, through the pores of your body, and through your mental thoughts, strengthening your immune system, restoring to balance all your organic activities, bringing encouragement and well-being to your body. Let's thank Jesus and the whole team of good spirits, asking for this light of healing and blessings for all humanity and involving all the sick and in distress for the trials of the earth at this time. Let's unite our thoughts of love and be an instrument of support so that the good spirits can act on everyone who needs it. Pass in name of Jesus. At this moment, we imagine the hospitals and everyone there receiving this healing support. The homes of the sick and those who remain silent, still feeling the action of this disease. We know that God acts in all of us. May His will be done. May the water set in our table now be blessed by the hands of the good spiritual brothers, workers of Christ, bringing all the benefits to our spiritual and physical bodies. Thank you, God. We close tonight's public meeting with this final prayer, thanking God for the opportunity of putting us all together here tonight to learn and to work inside of ourselves. Let's ask for God and the good spirits to remain by our side throughout this week, harmonizing our homes and helping us all to be instruments of God's words of love, so we may all bring this good energy, this kindness, and this love intention to every single person with whom we interact this week. May we all have a good night.
Thank you, Andriata. Thank you, everyone.